Good evening. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for December 1st, 2022. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order. The commissioners who are present for this evening's meeting are at City Hall and on Zoom. We also have staff from the city attorney and clerk's offices, as well as city planning department. You are joining us on Zoom this evening. We can see that you are here. You may observe the meeting. However, your ability to be seen on screen and talk will be muted. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, you will be unmuted and then be able to comment. Excuse me. Please note that we cannot take questions until the public testimony portion. If you have a process question during the meeting, please email cityclerk@meridiancity.org and they will reply as quickly as possible. If you want to watch the meeting, we encourage you to watch the streaming on the city's YouTube channel. You can access that at meridiancity.org/live. With that, let's begin with the roll call. Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Stoddard,
Present.
Commissioner Grace,
Here.
Commissioner Lorcher, Commissioner Yearsley,
Here.
Commissioner Seal,
Here.
and Commissioner Wheeler.
Here.
And absent is Commissioner Lorcher.
All right. Thank you very much. So the first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. File number H 2022-0042 for Cobalt Point Apartments will be opened only to approve the withdrawal of the application. File number H 2022-0074 for the Wiener Schnitzel drive-through will be open for the sole purpose of continuing to a regularly scheduled meeting. Will be open for that purpose only. So if there's anybody here tonight to testify for these applications, we will not be taking testimony on them. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second. Been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, aye. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and we have 3 items on the consent agenda. First, to approve the minutes of the November 17th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We also have finding fact and conclusions of law for file number H 2022-0070, which is a conditional use permit for Night Hill Center Childcare Facility. We also have findings of facts, conclusions of law for file number H 2022-0072, which is the conditional use permit for Center Point Apartments. Can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second. Been moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, motion carries. Okay, at this time, I'd like to briefly explain the public hearing process. We will open each item individually and begin with the staff report. Staff will report their findings on how the item adheres to our comprehensive plan and unified development code. After staff has made their presentation, the applicant will come forward to present their case and respond to staff comments. They will have 15 minutes to do so. After the applicant is finished, we will open the floor to public testimony. Each person will be called on only once during the testimony. The clerk will call the names individually of those who have signed up on our website in advance to testify. You will then be unmuted on Zoom, or you can come to the microphones and chambers. You need to state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to address the commission. If you have previously sent pictures or a presentation for the meeting, will be displayed on the screen, and you can run the presentation. If you have established that you are speaking on behalf of a larger group like an HOA, where others from that group will allow you to speak on their behalf, you will have up to 10 minutes. After all those who have signed up in advance have spoken, we will invite any others who may wish to testify. If you wish to speak on the topic, you may come forward in chambers, or if on Zoom, press the raise hand button in the Zoom app. If you are only listening on a phone, please press *9. Wait for your name to be called. If you're listening on multiple devices, such as a computer and a phone, please mute the extra devices so we do not experience feedback and we can hear you clearly. When you're finished, the commission does not have questions for you. You will return to your seat in chambers or be muted on Zoom. You will no longer have the ability to speak. And please remember, we will not call on you again. After all testimony has been heard, the applicant will be given another 10 minutes to come back and respond. When the applicant is finished responding to questions and concerns, we will close the public hearing and the commissioners will have the opportunity to discuss and hopefully be able to make final decisions or recommendations to City Council as needed. This time, I'd like to open public hearing for item number H 2022-0042 Cobalt Point Apartments. in order to accept the application withdrawal for that application.
Mr. Chairman, for a motion, I guess.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the application to withdraw agenda item 4, file H-2022-0042.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the application withdrawal for file number H 2022-0042 for Cobalt Point Apartments. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, no opposed. Motion carries. Now we will open file number H 2022-0074 for Wiener Schnitzel drive-through for a continuance to January 19th, 2023.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to continue file number H-2022-0074 to our scheduled meeting on January 19th, 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to continue file number H 2022-0074 to the regularly scheduled meeting date of January 19th, 2023. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
No opposed, motion carries. All right, so now at this time, I would like to open the public hearing for item number H 2022-0027 Sagara. We will begin with the staff report. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner and Commissioners online. Happy to be here tonight. I'm actually filling in for Sonia. She's taking a much needed vacation this week and part of next week. So I'm jealous, to be honest with you. Hopefully, and she's someplace warm. She's in Vegas. So I hope she's enjoying the weather down there because it's a little chilly and wet here. So the first application before you tonight is the Sagara project. It's a preliminary plat and a planned unit development, which is something that this commission doesn't see often. And it's not a portion of code that's utilized much, to be honest with you. So you can see here on the future land use map that the property is encumbered with, or not encumbered, but is designated with 2 land use types, mixed use community on a western portion of the site, and also medium density residential. Before I get into too much of the details of the application, I've had a chance to look at the public record this evening, and it looks like we've had some opposition in this particular application, and it appears a couple items are getting blurred tonight. So what I mean by that is some of the testimony insinuates that the project tonight is going to have over 504 residential units on it, and that is not the case. So I think more than likely what has happened is, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the applicant and developer has had a recent neighborhood meeting and discuss future plans that may come before this body. But the application before you tonight does not include 500+ units. It is for a planned unit development consisting of 146 residential units consisting of single family attached, single family detached, townhomes, and 38 multifamily units. So again, it's a substantially smaller project than what I've seen in some of that public testimony. So just wanted to clear up the record tonight that that will be potentially a future date.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So as we mentioned in the staff report, this property was annexed a while ago, back in 2019. It actually started with the city in 2017, and it took almost 2 years to get through the hearing process on this particular project. So there's a lot of history, a lot of work went into making sure that we have a project that meets the community's vision, I guess is the best way to say that. And so tonight, this is one of a future phase. It was always planned to have some residential component on it. Typically in these situations, you'll see a development agreement modification that's associated with changes to this property. But based on our analysis of the project, we found that it was consistent with the current development agreement that was amended recently in 2021. So as I mentioned to you, this project does consist of a plat. So there's 114 residential lots and 16 common lots. And then you can see up there in the upper left-hand corner, the project is planned to develop in 2 phases. So the phase 1 is the western half, phase 2, the eastern half. a lot of the analysis for the staff report really went into the PUD. I mean, it's easy. When you look at this project, you can see that it's pretty clustered. It's a dense development. And that's what the PUD process is about. One, it allows you to deviate from the dimensional standards, but it also allows you to have a more unique design for properties that have challenging dimensions. And this is one of those cases where you have a lot of public streets that surround this property, and then you add the fact that they have to build more internal public streets, makes it a unique piece of property to try to get some reasonable amount of density on it. So I'd let the commission know that the staff has met with the applicant over many months to try to fine tune a plan that would work on this particular property. And they have elected to go allow the R8 zoning to stay in place as it's currently approved, and then move forward through that PUD process. And that's why you have a multifamily component as part of this as well, because under the UDC in Chapter 2, if you go through a PUD process, the applicant can request a multifamily component. So as I mentioned to you here recently, here's this is less lines on this one. So I figured this would be best to explain the project to everyone. So you can see here, along the periphery of the development, the applicant is providing a transition of your typical single family detached homes. And as you transition farther north to the commercial development, you have that mix of what we call single family attached, the townhomes, and then the multifamily itself is internal, is located in this area here where you can see my cursor, where that larger open space area is. So that's really, and because of the uniqueness of this site, the PUD allows you to deviate from the setback standards as well. And that's what they've done as well. So in a typical R8 development, you have a 10-foot setback to living area, 20-foot to garage, 5-foot on each side, and 12-foot on the rear. In this particular case, the applicant is asking to deviate from those standards, which we felt was appropriate given the design or dimensions of this particular property. I know some of the public testimony also had mentioned the density and whether or not the density was appropriate for this site. As this body knows, the comp plan, majority of the site is medium density residential, which anticipates densities between 3 to 8 dwelling units to the acre. Now, what the comp plan also does on this particular project comes in at a gross density of 8.35. The comp plan also tells us that when we are either on the lower end or the higher end, we should round to the nearest whole number. So this particular number, density, because it's 8.35, we round it down to 8, and therefore staff finds that this, although it's on the higher end of the medium density residential designation, it does meet the density requirements of the land use designation. And then also the PUD standards and also require a mix of product types. So that's why you're getting the single family, the townhomes and the multifamily. So again, it's a package deal. If you had a chance to look at the staff report, you probably noted that staff had concerns with the open space and also the parking. And I can't say that the application wasn't complete enough to share that information with you. But what we really want the applicant to do is just prove up a little bit more how they're meeting those requirements. You can see here, they've given us an open space exhibit. Some of the areas count, some of them don't. There's certain dimensional standards they have to meet. We explain that in the staff report. I think one of the biggest challenges we have, and you can see on this plan, and I think it's one of the better amenities for this development, is that pathway along the southern and eastern boundary. That's a great amenity for that development, because not only does it work for this portion of the development, but it's continued throughout the rest of it too, and connects into Chinden as well. But in this particular case, there is a piped irrigation facility in that area. And so it's going to make it difficult to put any trees in that area. So typically when staff is analyzing open space for a project, if it doesn't meet the UDC standards, we don't count it because it doesn't meet all the rules and regulations. And so really what the applicant needs to do is submit for alternative compliance and do something equal to or better than what's allowed. Although we all want to see trees. I want more trees too. I love trees, but at the same time, if it's not feasible, they can either plant them elsewhere on the site or come up with an alternative in that area in order for us to count that. So In my discussions with the applicant, I think they're going to reach out to the landscape architect and figure out what areas count, give us a more accurate reading on what that open space is and how they meet that 15% compliance that we required. Also, because they have a multifamily component, they still have to provide that open space based on the number of residential units, the square footage of those residential units. So it's 15% plus whatever that amount is per resident, the 38 multifamily units. Typically, the multifamily units are between 500 and 1,200 square feet. So you're looking at 250 square feet times 38 plus the 15%. So I'd mentioned to you, I mean, from our perspective, it looks like they probably could get there. We just need more information and have them prove it up to us how they're going to get there. The other issue was parking. There wasn't a real detailed graphic showing us how they were meeting the parking standards of the code. And I know this body takes that very serious. Some of the public testimony also alluded to concerns with parking. If you look here, there's an east-west segment of local street that will be built with this development. And you can see in this graphic here that there's a series of chokers or bulb outs for traffic calming, but it also allows for on-street parking. So in this particular case, all of these units, except for the units along the periphery, no other units will have that parking pad because they're going to be 1 or 2 bedroom units. So all they need is a 2-car garage to satisfy code. So for example, in this location of the development here, you can see these gray areas here will be private streets in the future. They haven't submitted a private street application to us yet, but they have been conditioned to do that as part of their final plat. And so these will be private streets. And then as you can see here, none of the units, and I'll quickly go to their parking plan here to show how it works. You can see here, they're showing you all of the 2-car garages for those units that do not have parking pads. And then you can see here, the single family homes do have the 2-car garage and the 20 by 20 parking pad in front of it. So as I mentioned to you, if it's 1 or 2 bedrooms, a 2-car garage can suffice for the required parking. You don't need a pad. But if it's 3 or 4 bedroom units, then you're doing 4 parking stalls. And typically that's a 2-car garage and a 20 by 20 parking pad. So again, it's not a matter of if they have enough parking, it's a matter of giving us the information and proving you have the adequate parking. Because if they are truly all 1 and 2 bedroom units, then the 2-car garages do meet code. And then you have that additional parking with that more urban street section that they're doing in the center of the development with that on-street parking. So again, I think again, I know that's a concern of this body when we're talking about parking. And so again, not only the open space and the parking, we have conditioned them to address that prior to city council. Now, if this body wants that information prior to it moving on to city council, you can certainly see if the applicants answers your questions adequately tonight or ask for a continuance and have them work with staff and correct those deficiencies before you move that on. But I just thought I'd put that out there for you as well. The other uniqueness about this property is the amount of stub streets that come into this site. So with the development of Paramount, there were 3 stub streets, 1 on the east and 2 on the south boundary. 1 was extended already, which is Bergman. This was extended in with the first phase of the commercial development. So this is all built, including the traffic calming that was required. And then again, this is the new street segment that's going to be constructed with this proposed development. Amenities for the development. Again, that's another critical component of a planned unit development is that they provide us those amenity details. I can let you know here, looking on my notes here, they're going to have that multi-use pathway along the perimeter. And then they're going to have a swimming pool, changing rooms and restrooms, community workshop, dog washing stations, outdoor activity complex, fire pits, and barbecue area with tables and shade structure. So in our mind, they're providing adequate amenities as well. So no concerns from staff as far as that requirement goes. And then just because we have common open space requirements, staff did receive an email today about private open space. And the PUD standards do require that all of these units have their own private open space, either through enclosed yards or 80 square foot patios or front porches. Looking at a lot of the submitted elevations, it looks like the applicant, some of the units meet that requirement. some may not. So if the applicant can't meet that requirement with some of the units, they do have the ability to go through the alternative compliance process to waive that requirement or include lesser private open space. So I don't want to get it confused too much between private and public, but really the private is just more for the residential units themselves. Another component of the PUD process is site circulation and pedestrian circulation. And so this is something that the applicant provided to show you how all of that pedestrian connectivity is going to occur, not only vehicularly, but also with pedestrians. And this was required with their development agreement as well back in 2019 and 2021. And then one of our conditions as well is that the applicant work with ACHD on getting safe crossings across the collector road in these two locations here. So that's been conditioned as part of the project that they continue to work that out and make sure we have some kind of elevated crossing or something to make sure it brings the concerns to motorists that pedestrians will be crossing to the mixed use development on the north side of that roadway. And then, of course, with any PUD or any development applications, we do require architectural renderings. Again, further refinement will be needed as they go through, work with staff. They'll have to go through that architecture standards manual and comply with those design standards. Like some of the public testimony was around the aesthetics of these buildings. They don't match what's currently constructed in the area. Again, it's a PUD. Design is subjective, as you know. This might look great to the commission, but maybe somebody thinks they're not that great. But again, the idea about a PUD is getting some of that cluster development, maximizing the land and preserving some kind of open space as part of the development. So again, concerns with open space, but just need more information how we get there. But again, this design aesthetic probably lends itself well with the commercial development more than the residential to the south. But I know working with the developer and the applicant on this site, they do have a very specific vision for this property. And that's why they're here tonight, to share it with you. So looking at the public record, I did want to make mention to you that, again, there was, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of testimony in opposition of this project. Again, some of it was kind of misleading or not specific to this project, maybe a neighborhood meeting that occurred, but most of the comments stemmed around the density of the project, the aesthetics of the project. Some of the neighbors were concerned that it wasn't compatible with the surrounding developments, which are a lot of the things that you guys take under your purview when you're looking at these applications. But with that, I'll go ahead and just let you know that staff is recommending approval with the conditions in the staff report, and I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for all that. Appreciate the extra info on there. So this time, would the applicant like to come forward?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go
I
ahead.
apologize. I probably should have done this before our staff report, but I just wanted to disclose and for the benefit of the applicant and the folks here who are ready to testify. I'm a homeowner in Paramount. I'm also on the Paramount HOA. And so I gave some consideration to whether I should recuse myself from this agenda item. I did confer with our legal counsel, and I was prepared to go forward based on my review of this before the meeting tonight. But I think in the interests of maybe caution, I am going to recuse myself. I don't have any financial interest, which I think is the standard for a conflict of interest. Personally, I certainly don't have any, but it is, I suppose, possible that the HOA could have some interest in this based on my knowledge of the HOA's authority and scope within that 1 mile plat. So looks like we have a pretty full complement of commissioners here tonight. I think you guys can handle it. So I think in the interest of transparency and just out of caution, I'm going to recuse myself from this item.
Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Okay, now would the applicant like to come forward?
Two microphones. Do we speak into both of them?
Either one will work.
Commission, thank you for having me,
Mhm.
Commissioner. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Need your name and address for the record, please.
Michael Slavin, 424 East Thurman Mill Street, Garden City, Idaho. I'm with the development team. Accomplice is partnering with the landowner, which is High Desert Development. And Bill did such a wonderful job of starting out. He's actually going to bring up some slides to aid our presentation. I believe we have 10 minutes. We'll make it pretty quick. But just to launch in to give you a background, this is stemming from a development agreement that was entered into in 2019. This is an R8 zoned piece of property, roughly 17.49 acres. We are adhering to the density standards. That was really important to us. At the same time, the site is a little precarious shape. So that led us to a little bit more creativity in how we actually have a density minimum standard of at least R6 on this property. So that was our starting point, is a low bar. But thought it'd be really interesting to challenge ourselves to really put forth an interesting design that also fulfills the development agreement, being that one of the wishes is there's a natural transition from single family homes from the south to commercial to the north. So you see more contemporary design, but the main reason for that, or the driver for that, was to create this natural transition zone. And so we want to be really intellectually honest and you make a site that transitions nicely and is also very walkable to the commercial zone, in the hopes that people would use their cars less. So just running down into the site, I think that, yeah, I have it up. Thank you so much, Bill. So this is a vicinity. You're very familiar with this. Of course, zoning, we just covered this piece. Looking at the site, this hopefully helps you visually, or helps us visually demonstrate what we're wanting to accomplish. You'll see in the periphery, this is a wish of the community, as well as commentary or notes by the planning staff, is that there would be single family homes adjacent to the Paramount site. Transitioning north to the commercial Orchard Park Drive, and also from the east boundary west, we wanted to start making the site more dense and more interesting, and tapering up to we have a 50-foot height provision in the mixed use zone to the north. So we wanted to create a natural transition to that. And so thought that, of course, townhomes would be an interesting way to solve that issue. That was a wish of the development agreement. I want to make a couple other points on this topic, is that, one of the other wishes of the development agreement is we'd actually offer a mix of housing types. That includes, single family, detached, attached, multifamily, definitely allowed with certain provisions. And so we went ahead and used the code to find a way to make that happen. Getting into the actual comprehensive plan analysis, we wanted to talk on a couple notes that we thought to be important. Bill already addressed some of the prior notes in his presentation, but we thought it's really important to create this connectivity from the residential to the mixed use to the north. We will work with ACHD. We're happy to. We've received quite a few comments from the neighborhood community, and I think they're well-founded comments that if we can have raised street and spots to slow down car traffic, that's a really good idea and something we want to work towards and pursue. You'll see that there actually are a couple demonstrated pathways. One kind of north of Bergman, we actually have a flat work area I'll show in more detail on an amenity plan that sits adjacent to some of the multifamily, with outdoor patios and fire pits and outdoor space for the community that we think is pretty cool. We also have an area that leads from a dog park. You can see on the left portion, we have 2 acres. It's a dedicated, it's not actually part of this application, but I think is important. We have a 2-acre park that's for community use that we think will be a really great amenity. Thank you, Bill. It's going to be most likely an off-leash dog park. They'll seem to be pretty rare throughout the entire Treasure Valley, and pretty highly sought after. So that'd be interesting. The other place that we're really focusing on is a pedestrian connection to the library. And so we want to draw a direct connection. We think that's a great community amenity we're really proud of, and happy with our partnership with the Meridian Library District. Some of the other comments I want to address directly, of course, density, we've touched on that. We're falling within our legal bounds for the recent zoning that was applied in 2019. And then moving to the preliminary plat, I just want to look at these are some of the comments, by the way. It's talking about open space. That was a great question, and thank you for the comments from the planning staff. We have had several conversations. We of course relocated a large irrigation canal and the chairman of the irrigation committee or ditch board for this particular ditch, Rod Ragnar, he's open to giving us a license agreement to plant. We can even plant trees. We just need to present certain trees of certain species with shallow root systems that won't intrude the tile ditch that we put in place. So that's absolutely a possibility. So we'll work really quickly to do that. I know that we have to provide that information before our council hearing. So we'll move very quickly to rectify any open space questions. And we're very excited about that open pathway as well. And then speaking of the parking, we somewhat have this in our back pocket. We know it could come up. It comes up in development quite a bit and for good reason. And so, Bill, I ran the calculations. I'll just go to this parking diagram I have in the back that he had showed earlier. And so we are providing, just to be really clear, enough off-street parking for the development to work, you know, and is code compliant. We have, I think, surplus of 10 spaces that are off-street for the development. And I'd also like to point out that each of the single family homes in the periphery, we're going to the maximum standard of 3 to 4 bedrooms, which requires 4 spaces per spot. Some of those likely could be 1 or 2 bedrooms, depending on how, those are gonna be somewhat custom build homes. So a lot of those could be smaller. These are smaller lots, and we see a lot of downsizers and retirees that are very interested in this location just because it's a very walkable area. So in addition to that, though, we wanted to provide in our parking study. So we are overparked off-site, or sorry, on-site or off-street. On street, we have 122 additional spaces. This diagram, it's not large enough probably for you to be able to see or appreciate, but we've also discussed with the Meridian Fire Department that we have fire access throughout the site. And so we have, you can see where cars are missing on the street. Those are actually for radius turns for fire trucks and fire access. So we have had them sign off on the site plan as proposed as well. But we feel that the 122 extra spaces would be adequate in addition to the additional spaces we have on site. And that is taking into account the guest parking standards as well for all units. I'm going to jump back up to slide 6. Just have that in my back pocket. Like I said, Bill did such a great job. I'm going to be repeating a little bit of this stuff, unfortunately, the things that we thought to be interesting. So in talking specifically to planned unit development, is a little bit rare. We have done these in other cities. We're happy that provision. Something we don't take lightly, we don't abuse. It's not to get extra density. In this particular case, you can see on the triangular portion of the site, we like to consolidate homes when we can to create more open space. So we wanted to build more of a Gramercy Park style setting. As you look at most developments, and there's a pool that's infrequently used, and usually there's a big wrought iron fence around it, and it's in the corner of the development, usually the most undesirable piece of property. And in this particular case, we wanted to make it the heart of the development where community can come together. You know, we have a clubhouse, we have a lot of amenities that surround the pool, and we find that to be pretty interesting. So we want to build a community building site. That's of course one of the tenets of a PUD is it allows for innovative design. And it also, you know, creates functionality or functionally integrated development, which we feel this does. And what else should we talk about? Oh, private patios, that was mentioned briefly. We did get a comment earlier on the review of our file. We are providing private patio space for all units. And Bill, maybe I didn't send that in the package, but some of the multifamily units we were counting on public space that would satisfy that requirement. We've just added balconies to those different buildings at 80 square feet and above for those units. So we'll go ahead and update that to you as well, but we have addressed that issue. What else we have? Going specifically to multifamily requirements, which are allowed in a PUD provision. This really just drives home the biggest requirement that we have, and I think we've surpassed it based on planning standards, is it for the amount of multifamily units we are providing on the site or have planned on the site, we need to have at least 3 public community amenities on the site for 38 to I think 50. So what we have is we have a community house next to a community pool. We also have a tool library. Those got to be pretty popular. And people living in more urban settings, they don't need their own, you know, huge garage. We don't want them, but sometimes we don't get them. It's a nice place to tinker on bikes and have a little wood shop, things like that, and also dog wash stations. So we can have these nice consolidated resources that the entire neighborhood can enjoy, that we thought to be pretty interesting. And of course, you know, fire pits and community gathering areas, et cetera. And then lastly, I know my time is probably almost up. Here, building elevations, those have been submitted as well. And so I'm speaking the parking bill, and I'll send this to you. I have a table. So if you have any specific questions about the count. We did go through the count last night just to make sure that we're squared away with the parking, that we're satisfying requirements. Cool, we did it.
Thank you. Do our commissioners have any questions for the applicant or staff? All right. With that, we'll open up you can go ahead and take a seat, sir. Yep, we'll open up the public hearing portion of this. Do we have anybody signed up?
Doug Jones.
Good evening, sir. Need your name and address for the record, and the floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is Doug Jones, 1274 West Barrymore in Paramount. I don't know enough about this to make relevant comments specifically. I did attend the public meeting they had at the clubhouse some months ago. I did express concern about parking at that point. That's come up again tonight. My frustration, really, the developer sent out a letter a month or more back announcing this public hearing, but there was nowhere to get additional information. No website, no QR code, nothing. And when you Google it, you don't get any information. So other than my memory of what I saw several months ago, that's the only information I was able to draw on about this project and where they are in the development. So my suggestion to commission and staff, and I have talked to the city staff some time ago, make these developers put in a link so you can find out more about the project before you show up here tonight to talk about a public meeting. I'm not necessarily opposed to the project. Somebody needs to put something on it. Multifamily housing done right is a need this community's got. But I sure would like to have known more about it before I got here this evening. So that would be my comment, more to you guys than the developer. But for Pete's sake, give us a link, give us a way to find more information. I did find some drawings, finally, going back through. ACHD had some drawings in their links of what was available there. So that would really be my comment, more to the process than to this specific development, because the more people have information, the better prepared they are to make relevant comments and not make comments to some other part of the development that may not be relevant to what's being talked about here tonight. So I'll follow the process. I want to see what's going to happen. I live pretty close. But that would be my comment. Do your due diligence with staff and with your planning and zoning commission. Be sure it's done right, because it's a lot easier to do it right than to try to change it later. I'm skeptical about the canal company allowing them to plant trees over the top of that pipe, but that's my whole personal opinion as a farmer and dealing with canal companies. So thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, do we have any questions? All right, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Madam Clerk?
Chris Eastman.
Good evening, ma'am. Need your
Good
name and
evening.
address, please.
Yes, my name is Chris Eastman. I live at 1192 West Bacall Street in Paramount. Well, good evening, commissioners. I actually wish I was not standing here before you today. This is not my cup of tea. But unfortunately, I've been in this process since back in 2007. What I'd like first to say is, you know, they talk about a lot of the work that went in 2017. And what was proposed and what we worked so hard to get an agreement was not what you're seeing tonight. Although they can say it fits the criteria, the picture that was presented to us back then was 2 rows of homes, and then going from there, going into condos. And so there would have been no 2 extra streets needed. There would have been just 1 private street, both sides with the homes, and then slowly going out. So they have added so much more density than what was initially presented in 2017. So that's my first comment, is I definitely agree that there's just too much. And if you could actually take the time to stand in this area, because it looks lovely in this picture when they try and put it on, but when you stand in front of this area and you try and envision a home going to a condo, going to a townhouse with no space between the sidewalks, it's pretty hard to see how they're going to be packed in there. The second comment I wanted to make is I was leaving to work late yesterday because my daughter was not feeling well. And thankfully my patient had to cancel because of the snow. And I was going out through this jog of the road, which there's already been accidents and concerns with people driving. And just turning out at a different time in the morning, I was able to see the crazy traffic that came from Rocky. I've never been going out. I normally leave earlier. I helped a teenager who crashed her car into the fire hydrant. She went off the road, crashed in the fire hydrant and was stuck there in a total hysteric, panicked. Was able to stop and help her for a while. And I sat there and watched as teenager after teenager came down that road through this jog, so much through that way to get to Rocky. There were so many near misses, not only to me, this teenager, but on the other side of the road. And here we are talking about them adding parking to a street. I mean, I'm asking you guys to please not only use your brain. This looks lovely on a picture, but it is not lovely in real life. It needs to have some corrections. I want this developed. I want to have homes behind me. I want it to be switched, but I want it to be done right. And that is what I'm asking you guys, to have them do it correctly. It's not all about, it doesn't meet exact requirements. Can this be livable? Are we going to protect our community and people's lives? Because what I saw last time was very concerning. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sally Reynolds.
Good evening, commissioners. I have a presentation that was emailed in, so I'm going to be using that. But while she looks for it, since it's not quite ready, I'm happy to yield the floor to someone else who doesn't need the presentation.
That will work. Got somebody else?
Shane
signed up?
Nye.
Okay, appreciate that. Evening, sir. Name and address, please.
My name is Shane Nye and I live at 858 West Bacall Street. And I appreciate you being here, and I'm kind of in the same situation. I didn't have very much access to information before now. So the questions I guess I could have asked during the presentation, but didn't want to interrupt, is the other night they were talking about the $1 million homes, and I wish he would point out which ones are the $1 million homes on the diagram. Sorry, I just want you to point out the $1 million homes on your diagram that you were talking about the other night.
I was gonna say, when he comes back up, he can point those
Okay.
out. So we can't have a back and forth dialogue with this.
No, I understand. That's fine. I didn't know he'd be coming back up. So, but yeah, I just didn't have very much information, and I would like to know when this was presented to the city of Meridian, because I kind of tried to keep up on this. Is this just now being presented to you, or how long have you had the information?
I don't know the exact answer to that, but staff can probably reply to that question.
Okay. At a later time, or, sorry.
Well, I was gonna say he's busy right now, so we'll.
Anyway, it's something I've tried to keep up on as much as I could, and I made some pretty specific phone calls, and this was not presented to me as early as 2 months ago. And so I was just curious about that. Those are the only questions I had. So thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
That is all I have signed up at the moment, and there's no one online. We're still
Okay.
pulling up her presentation.
You've got it. Okay, if you want to come back up. Sounds like we've got it. We'll get there, I promise.
Oh, no worries. I'm happy to wait. Just fine. I'd rather have my words in front of me than.
Understood. Happens to the best of us. If it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Completely fine.
Yes, ma'am. Come on up, please. Good evening. Name and address, please.
Lisa Metcalf. My address is 967 West Barrymore Drive in Paramount. And I did have a concern about street parking. I know that the apartments that are in Paramount currently that are kind of close to Meridian Road and by that middle school over there, I think it's called the Paramount Apartments, but I don't know the name. There is a lot of parking on the street there. And I find it dangerous sometimes just trying to get in and out and around, you can't see. And so I was curious, is there going to be no parking allowed at any time on specific streets in this development? Like that
I was going to say,
street that goes like an S kind of, that would be one of my major concerns because that street already is dangerous. I drive it embarrassingly every day when I go to Winco because I'm not a planner. But if there were cars parked on that street, it would be an absolute, completely dangerous. And then also on the streets, just near any of like where the major inlets are from the neighborhood, if there's parking allowed on those streets near the inlets, it's going to cause a problem as well. So I would just be concerned about safety.
right. I
That's
think
my-
what Bill's pulled up here, the areas that are noted in pink on the roads are no parking. Is that correct, Bill? That's my understanding of it. I may be understanding that incorrectly, so.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I think those are the parking areas.
Oh, pink is the parking areas.
That is parking.
That is parking. Yep.
Okay, I'm strongly opposed to that and I would ask that you take that into consideration because that street, go drive it. I seriously just go drive that little street right there. So.
Completely
That's-
understand what you're saying and
Yeah.
and those are public streets, right? The major streets through here are public streets. So
So that you don't have,
that is ACHD all the way. So
okay,
unfortunately,
thank you.
welcome. Would anybody else like to testify? Ma'am, come on up.
To show photos?
Quite
Should
possibly.
I give that to Bill or?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Our internet is not working at the moment. That's why we're.
Oh,
in trouble.
okay.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Carpenter. My address is 5991 North Arliss Avenue in the Paramount community. Thank you so much for being here and thank you for hearing us this evening. We appreciate your time as well. If you wouldn't mind, Bill, advancing to the next couple of photos. So the photos that I brought to you tonight are Bergman, as Lisa was just speaking to, the zigzag street. When this community was being developed, we did as a community ask for traffic calming street, and that's why the zigzag is there, and it's already proved massively effective as we have had different people crash into the field because they were out hot rodding. So what we are showing here today are what is suggested by ACHD is parking on both sides of Bergman, as well as traffic attempting to pass through. So per the parking plan, and again, it is ACHD recommended, that there is parking on both sides of Bergman. And so you see one car trying to go through. And Bill, can you advance to the next photo, please? And then this lovely teenager was attempting to go to Winco for lunch and asked if he could get through, because you really couldn't get through with what potentially would be a car parked on both sides and then two-way traffic attempting to get through. So we would really ask that ACHD reevaluate the streets there and that they do not recommend it. Per the ACHD guidelines, it does suggest a 36-foot street, and that street is only 33 feet. And that is within guidelines. But again, I think that extra space really makes a difference. So yes, as Paramount homeowners, we are concerned about the parking. We are also concerned about the density. Yes, the property is zoned R8, but please also consider that Paramount is zoned R8, and we do have very nice homes that are very nicely spaced. And that's really what we're asking of the developer, is that they could go back and look at reducing the number of units, to reduce the number of cars, to reduce the amount of parking needed, and to reduce the amount of strain on the community, i.e. the schools and fire department, police department, et cetera. Just like some of the other neighbors got up and spoke about, it is a bit difficult to find the information unless you know where to look. And I have been in this community since 2016. So fortunately, I know how to scour the City of Meridian websites and look at all the planning and zonings. But I will tell you, after reading everything, I feel like I should have a PhD in this. So really, that's the moral of it, is reduce the number of units. That would reduce the need of parking, reduce the strain on the community. Again, too, the look of the community is extremely modern, and our homes are not. They're not modern. They're more classic, traditional. And forgive me, the developer, I forgot his name, but he did speak to Gramercy Park, and that is New York. This isn't New York. This is Meridian, Idaho. 3 stories is too much. It's too high. We all have 2-story homes. We have beautiful views of Bogus Basin. We'd like to retain that. It really, in our mind, makes more sense that it would be a 2-story maximum housing, and then on the other side of Orchard Park, then we can talk about a higher. But you know, some of those 3 stories are 39 feet, and that is extremely high and extremely blocking to our current views. So those are the main comments that I have.
Okay.
Any questions?
None for me. Any from the other commissioners? All right.
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
I think we're good.
Do we have a presentation?
We do.
Okay. I'm excited. There's been a lot of hype around this.
I know. Now I can't let you down,
Say.
right? Thank you so much for getting that ready. Hold on just a second before I start. Will I be able to control it from here, Bill? Spacebar to, okay. You just go full screen. Maybe I can. All right, my name is Sally Reynolds, 1166 West Bacall Street in Meridian, Idaho. I am here to request continuance of this application at the P&Z level. Due to the staff report not being submitted in a timely manner, the development does not meet the requirements for a PUD. The staff report indicates multiple exhibits that need to be revised, including landscaping, site amenity, parking, and open space exhibits. There are outstanding questions regarding the southern fence, street parking, 3 alternative compliance fulfillments, and the irrigation easement. So Meridian City Code states what a PUD can be used for. This development does not qualify under points 1 and 3, and it does not qualify under point 2 because the density is just about 8 acres and PUDs are supposed to be for greater. The garages actually do all front the streets, and just because there are a variety of residential units does not necessarily make it innovative. Those units were selected because that's what maximizes households on this lot without needing a complete rezone to R15. And as Bill pointed out, allows for the multifamily. It may be argued many rooftops are needed to make the commercial piece economically viable, but there are 1,500 households that can walk to this area without crossing a major road. Plus Tuesday night, the neighborhood meeting was held that laid out plans for potentially 500 more units in the northwest corner of this plat, With that said, they are using the PUD to request exactly what Meridian said it should not be used for, to change dimensional standards. And even if it was a PUD and the code, well, as you can see, this is the chart I wanted to point out, they're asking for basically modifications on almost every single setback for every single building on almost every single lot. But even if it was a PUD, the code still says that the setback around the periphery of the planned development cannot be changed. They are asking for 0 feet along the north side behind the ribbon townhomes in violation of UDC 1174. PUDs also require 80 feet of private usable space to each unit. I wasn't given an answer till just now, but before neither the application or staff report was clear on how they are alternatively complying with the request. Finally, the application does not meet minimum open space requirements, which were supposed to be even more because 3 years ago, the developer horse traded providing more open space in return for Winco's larger footprint. This parcel should be developed to what was in the current agreement, adhering to R8 zoning. Consequently, the number of units may need to be more around 100 to 120, which would allow for greater compliance with private and overall space requirements as well as setback dimensions. The two major questions Kelly's talked about, one is the on-street parking of Bergman. Hopefully that will be addressed by ACHD. And then also the southern fence is in disrepair from when the canal was rerouted along the residents' back fences. It is 15 years old, but the side fences have been able to be stood. So in conclusion, my recommendation is that it be reworked, the fence to be repaired, some lighting to be considered to reduce criminal activity along that corridor, and just to continue it so that it can be completely cleaned up and the exhibits can be finalized before it goes to council. And I would like to add one private or one positive note for the developer. I really like to thank this developer. What we worked with 4 years ago, they have been much better to work with. They have been better transparency. I do appreciate their attempt to feather the density from, our houses out. And so there are some good things that they've done. I just think that it's pushing the boundaries a little bit too far and we need to watch the code. Thank you. I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions? Keep looking over at you, but I realize you're not. You can't, but nobody else is raising their hands. So thank you very much. Anybody else want to come up and testify? Sir, come right on. Name and address, sir.
Justin Carpenter, oops, sorry, 5991 North Arliss, Paramount subdivision. Thank you for your guys' time tonight. To Sally and what Kelly said, these guys have been very good about their information that they've been presenting. Not to beat the dead horse about parking and density, but I just want the kind of the greater picture. Everybody's talked about R8 and that this is R8. I think there's plenty of examples in the valley where just because you could doesn't mean you should. And that's what I ask you guys to look at this, from an objective perspective. And yes, it's to the guidelines of what R8 is, but you're just sausage casing so much into just such a tiny area. I want, if you guys could take a field trip and look at it. I think it was Sally who even said, or one of the other testimonies, just get a feel for what this lot looks like and then envision this. And I think that if we could get that reduction in units, give these people some more space, we'd have a much better, development that is going to be a shining star to Meridian. Right now it's just too much. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Question.
Come on up. Good evening. Just need your name and address for the record. Please speak right into the microphone, please.
My name is Jennifer Card and I live at 6031 North Booth Avenue in Paramount. We back up.
Oh, can you come a little closer to the?
Sorry.
Yep.
We back up to this development as well. The biggest thing I think is parking. I mean, I'm going to beat a dead horse. parking is a major issue. Parking is going to fall into our neighborhood. Where this curve is incredible. I walk my dog early in the mornings, generally during the summer. Even kids even then are squirreling around in there. They're doing all sorts of things. And I think that that needs to have some stuff worked out. And I'm happy to ACHD and get a hold of them and write letters and whatever I need to do. But we also have, there's a traffic flow issue here. And there's a density. When we walk our dogs around this every single day. And like somebody said earlier, I cannot fathom how they can fit all of this in that spot, having open spaces and stuff like that. To be able, somebody said, to be able to count the grass along the sidewalk as an open space, whether that's a fact or not, I hope is not true. And I hope that you guys can see through that. But I hear about responsible growth, and we know this is going to be developed. We just want it to be developed the right way. And like somebody else said, once you do it, you can't go back. So we need to do it right the first time. And that's really important with the massive growth that's happening here. So I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ma'am, come on up.
My name is Julie Duran, and I live at 1236 West Bacall Street. Also, just backing up to this area. We bought our house in 2018, and at the time, the plans for the area, as someone else mentioned, was like 2 rows of houses with a road in between, and not directly behind my house, but to the side, there was this big park area that was like a community park for these houses going in that would give them this area, that open space that you were talking about. And now I look and there's no park. Like, you have the triangle area, and they said they had like a community pool and stuff in there, but it's not the same as having like open green area in the community. And so, just like the last person mentioned, a little patch of grass next to the sidewalk is not the same as the feeling of having an open park where people can be with their children. Like, a dog park is not a children park, right? Like, those are different spaces. And I just feel like with the library there and all these houses, like you need a park, you need that green space. So taking it away or providing a provision that they don't have to do it, like it's not the same. And to have so many people in such a small area without big open areas where people can take their kids to play or just be outside. A patio is not the same as green space. And I think that's really important for this development. I also have concerns about density and parking, especially that little lightning bolt S shape. Like, that sucker's a mess. Like, even if you're driving like 15 miles an hour, like, to stay, there aren't even lines drawn in the middle because no one would be able to, like, it's tricky. And it's fine now because there's usually only one car on the road at a time. But if you put 146 units there, and then you put a big 5-story thing on the other side, you're going to have people there always, and people parking there always. And that's, like I said, it's not safe. Even just 2-way traffic, if there's someone coming the other way, you have to be very careful. And if people are parking on the side, it's something for consideration, I feel like. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Anybody else want to testify? Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant or staff before they comes back up? I do have one question was brought up, which is basically, when was this plan presented to staff? I don't know if we have a date on that or not.
Commission, we started with the applicant months ago, so we've been fine tuning this for probably over a good year or more.
Okay.
And I can tell you, during the many meetings I've had with the applicant, and we've talked about getting the neighbors involved and getting buy-in from the community. Because that's what transpired 4 years ago when we went through all of this. And we said that would be a huge hurdle they would have to overcome, is to get community buy-in, and that would be a big part of their submittal to us and our support. And so I think for the most part, in having my meetings with this applicant, they've reached out and been very open to the community and sharing their ideas with them. So that's all I can share as far as my interaction with getting this project started.
Thank you. Applicant like to come back up?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes, ma'am.
on the city's website, we do have underneath all the application and everything. It was put in October. It was available on our the city's website.
Okay, thank you. On up.
Commission. I'll try to respond in kind as much as I can. I'd like to make a general statement because there's been quite a few concerns about this north-south street, which we'd be happy not to put it in, but we were actually legally obligated to put it in. We're happy to stand with you and eliminate all parking on that street, by the way. We don't want it. We don't like it. We don't need it for the development. So there are plenty of other spaces that could be used. So absolutely. ACHD, as you said, they are their own beast. I've gotten to know them fairly well. Yeah, sorry about that. But we're 100% in agreement on the parking, and I do apologize. To Mr. Jones, very quickly, I'm sorry you weren't able to get more information. I'll work with the city in future iterations to make sure you're able to access information. So I completely agree with that. To Chris Eastman, as far as the density goes, our traffic study back in 2017 through our traffic engineer was actually for 146 units. It was always planned to be 146 units. So it's never changed. Nobody's ever been trying to be sneaky or coy at all. It's always been an R8 development. We've had a traffic study that substantiates that. Eliminate parking. That was another comment I'd like to make. To Sally Reynolds, thank you. I love the fact you know code so well. We do have a lot of exhibits that we'll be filling in the blanks. We are confident that we're taking the right path. We put a lot of work into this development. Shane Nye, $1 million homes. They'll be the homes in the periphery. And that was, maybe a few months ago, the interest rates are very high. So there might be some suppression, but homes in the valley, staggeringly enough, are trading at $500 a foot. So it's not hard to get $2 million home anymore. It's a little bit unbelievable to think that 5 years ago, $200,000 home was a very opulent home. And that's why a lot of people moved to Boise. Let me see your neighborhood meeting. We did have a neighborhood meeting. I'm sorry if you didn't get a letter. That was in February. We actually held a second neighborhood meeting out of courtesy in June. So we do really take to heart what people have to say. We want to produce a quality development in the neighborhood. Green sweater woman, I don't remember your name. Yes, parking, we will get rid of it. Those are most of the comments. I think that one of the big ones to Justin Carpenter is that, the reason that we're offering this neighbor is not everybody wants a big home with a yard. It's, some people like to lock and leave. They live here half time. They live in Florida half time. And this is a unit that isn't really offered in Meridian in any great number. And definitely not without walkable amenities. I mean, half the vision of this is, and I'm one of those people that live in Garden City. I love to get on a bike and walk to, a restaurant, walk to a coffee shop. It's a different lifestyle. Some people want a big family home, like want a big home. Some people want a smaller space. We're trying to fill out a product mix and also trying to fulfill the mixed use spirit of the future land use map and the comprehensive plan, et cetera. So this, in our view, really conforms to the comprehensive plan. And Jennifer Carr, open space. Yeah, there actually is a park, so we don't want to be misleading about that. We didn't include it in the application. There's a 2-acre park that's dedicated that we can't build on. So just to let you know, there's a 2-acre park. We might or might not let it be leash off dog. There's other concerns about that. Some people really want it. That having been said, is we're providing a really cool plaza in front of the library. We're going to have so many cool spaces for kids to hang out and, for the library to actually, roll out 3D printers. They've been so wonderful to work with. So I'm very confident there's gonna be a lot of public space for children, for adults, for everybody to enjoy this entire site. Thank you.
Quick question for you. There was somebody that mentioned that sounds like the multifamily is going to be 3-story. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, it is. But actually, thank you. I want to speak to height for a minute. when you have two-story homes next to two-story homes, you're not taking views away. And in our case, we have a lot of flat roof homes versus a gable home. So when you think about it, if you're standing in perspective, there's, and you're on ground floor and there's two-story home in front of you, you're going to have the same difference in view. It's not going to impede your view any more or less. We do have a height restriction on the site. We're definitely complying with that. And that's, we're really trying to do everything by the book. It's not trying to be cute. These zoning standards are in place for a reason, and we're working within the zoning compliance standards there are. So I'm sorry, there's not gonna be a field there forever. I mean, I really am. We all go through changes. It's not fun, but at the end of the day, this is gonna be probably the highest quality development you could conceivably have in this location. So thank you.
I had another question, but
Sure.
it's eluding me at this point. The rest of our commissioners are online. Do they have any other questions for the applicant or staff? I'm going to take that as a no. Okay. With that, you can go ahead and take a seat, and need a motion to close the public hearing, please.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Sorry, we can't have you come back up. Nope. Okay, I need one of my commissioners who's online. Please close the public hearing part of this. Need a motion, please.
What are they called?
Don't worry.
Do I have to say something specific, or do I just move to close the public hearing?
Just need a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, I move we close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded to close the public hearing for file number H 2022-0027. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, sorry.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. Right, who wants to go first?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Yearsley, please go ahead.
I don't know if I have really much to say. This has been planned out from the very beginning of the site plan for Winco, and they're just bringing it to fruition. I think it looks good, and don't have any issues with it at all.
Okay, anybody else want to comment?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Wheeler.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm with Commissioner Yearsley on the same way. I just don't know what's, much more to say. It looks like they've been working on it for a long time. We got a staff recommendation on this. I'm in support of this project.
Well, I'll throw my 2 cents in here. So I have nothing, I don't really have any major reservations about it. I agree parking is a pain. It's a pain everywhere. So unfortunately, ACHD owns these streets, and if they say they can park on them, they can park on them. So unfortunately, our hands are tied with it. So what I try to tell people is, if you're here for the parking in the streets, you're at the wrong meeting. ACHD controls those. So by the time we get them, we have to go by what their report says and what their findings are, unless we want to get lawyers involved. So I don't think as taxpayers, we want to do that on every application. I do agree with some of the testimony that's been provided tonight. I think this is a little bit, well, I won't say a little bit, I think it's incomplete. So I don't have any reservations about it. I just think that better definition of the open space and how that's going to be refined. My opinion, that's going to affect density. I don't think that you can offer the open space that's going to be required without eliminating some of the units that are in here. So, 2 birds, 1 stone with that one is my opinion. So, I mean, you're technically within the density limits, but only because we're rounding down. So mean, in the communities that we have, let's just try and keep the density where it needs to be. It's 3 to 8. Keep it 3 to 8, not 8.35. So, I mean, that's, you know, I'm not trying to be cute either, but at the same time, you know, 3 to 8 is 3 to 8. So I'd like to see the common open space better defined, you know, come back with basically what I would do at this point is I would continue this so that you can come back, have a better defined open space presentation, better define the parking that's in here, you know, put it in writing what it is. I understand that you brought something tonight, but I wasn't able to read that before tonight, so I don't know. So to me, it's just incomplete. So I don't have any reservations about the design of it. In fact, I think it's a good design for where it's at. I mean, I kind of, you know, I would almost look at this as infill if it wasn't something that had been planned out for so long. I really like the path that you've done around the perimeter. I like to bike, I like to walk. I talk about it on almost every planning and zoning meeting. People probably get tired of hearing it, but I think it's valuable and imperative that we do that. So, you know, as somebody that goes to Eagle a lot to ride their bike, because our community doesn't provide a really good basis for doing that, can tell you if you want to save public land, start putting paths on it. So I'm glad to see that there. The one reservation I do have on it, or the one question I do have on it, that was my question. Aha, I remember now. The fencing that's along the Paramount properties, since it's not privacy fence, how will that be handled? Bill, sorry.
The chairman and members of the commission, it's existing fencing now. So it's whether or not the applicant and the homeowners can work on a solution there.
Okay, it looks like I mean, the fencing looks fairly dilapidated. That's not, in my opinion, that's not something that the applicant should have to single-handedly take care of, but I think there's probably agreements that can be made, something amicable. What I'm getting at is, generally speaking, that would be required to be semi-private, semi-open, however you want to say it, you know, basically visible fencing, because that is going to close that area off to make it somewhat of an alleyway type situation. So, I mean, to have that open style fencing on both sides would be something that would make that, you know, better for everybody. So again, I like the fact that it's a pathway. I understand the, you know, what you're up against as far as having an irrigation canal there and everything. So I don't think there's anything nefarious going on here. I just think that there's more work that needs to be done. And I would rather continue this and have you come back with a complete application that better defines the open space, has a solid plan for what you're going to be able to do with the landscaping along the ditch area, what's going to happen with the fencing. You've indicated in here you're more than happy to go in front of ACHD, try to eliminate as much parking as possible. We'll give you time to do that as well. So again, I think there's nothing necessarily wrong with the application that's here. I just think that it can be more complete and more time would allow you to do that. That's my opinion.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Stoddard, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually agree with you that a continuance would be a good idea. I do think that there are some good things with the application, but it does need to be fine-tuned a little bit.
Okay. With that, we'll need a motion of some type or more conversation from any of the commissioners.
Do we have a date that it needs to be continued to?
That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, honestly, the applicant's comment about going to ACHD and talking about this is that would probably, in my mind, kick it down the road the furthest. So I don't know what that would even look like, to be perfectly honest, in reference to time. You know, to be honest, I mean, it is something that is out of everybody's hands in this room. It is something that ACHD would definitely have to take care of. So, and in my mind, they've already written what they're willing to do. That includes the parking. So I don't agree with it. I'm in agreement with, you know, most people in this room that, you know, that parking on a road like that with that kind of connectivity is probably going to be an issue. but that's ACHD's purview. So I don't know how long it would take to do that. So that's a really long way of saying, I don't know, Commissioner Yearsley. I would say, I mean, at least a month. So I mean, we're at the first meeting in December. I would say at a minimum, the first meeting in January.
No, I'd go probably the first meeting of February, just because you're gonna lose a lot of time for the holidays.
And that's true. We do have the holidays coming. So,
Which is February 2nd.
okay,
Mr. Chairman, can I offer a thought or two?
absolutely. Always appreciate your input.
The first thought is with respect to ACHD, I think a lot of the issues that you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, in terms of open space calculations, more information about parking and so forth, those are all issues that are important for this body's decision-making. So those are very legitimate to, ask for a continuance or require a continuance until you have a complete application and you have the answers to your questions, because those are key decision points. They're facts that are necessary for you to make a decision. I would just contrast that with the ACHD topic, which really is not within, it's not a key decision point for this body in terms of what you're being asked to make a recommendation on. I think it only would come into play is if they can't meet their parking obligations without that on-street parking. So I think that's the only way you would draw that connection. Otherwise, the ACHD conversation really probably is not critical to your decision as a body. Does that make sense?
It does. And that's, I guess and you've elaborated more on how that ties in as far as the parking piece of it. I mean, there's a concern as far as safety, but there's also the concern as, will they meet parking? So again, a better devised plan as far as open space parking density, how that all plays out. So
My second thought was, this is at the chair's discretion, so you're not required to do this, but we have done this in the past. You may, if you're inclined to do so, you could ask the applicant if they have a thought about how much time they might need to respond to the items that you listed. So you can solicit their input. You don't have to, but we've done that once or twice before.
okay, and I was kind of leaning in that direction. If we're going to look at a continuance, we do need to open the public hearing back up. So if that's the direction that we're going, I would take a motion to do that.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to reopen the public hearing for file number H 2022-0027. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. All right, public hearing is open. Applicant, please come back up. Thank you, sir. Sorry, we're a little bit back and forth here. So,
Takes a village.
yeah, it takes a village, exactly. So if you want to give us your best estimation on what can be done in what time frame, we're more than happy to hear it.
Sure. To the points that are tied to the specific development, the open space calc, which would drive density, of course, and parking, we'd be ready by the next commission hearing with that information. I feel confident in that. ACHD is a different matter, and I'm not being cute or nefarious on this either. It takes time with them even to get a meeting. And several other instances, they take months and months to respond. And my view on that is the road is constructed. It's not going to change the design or construction of the road. The best we can do is in the future have it marked as non-parking. And that, I mean, as long as that's done, as soon as we could possibly do it, but I'd say that'd take 3 or 4 months at best to, have the right discussions with the right folks at ACHD and get to some type of conclusion. For them, they have a formal process as well, just like any city does. So I'm sure you're going to go through some bureaucratic steps. But we prefer to go to the next hearing prepared to answer the questions that are germane to our development.
Okay. Do we know in the next hearing how many we have at this point? Seems like we were pretty crowded.
Mr. Chair, we already have 5.
We have 5. We will probably go one more other than that.
One on January 5th, we only have 1.
Okay, January 5th, we will shoot for that. Generally speaking, if you were a continuance, you'd go in at the end. And if we found that after 5 applications, we get into, 11 o'clock at night, and generally we just continue them anyway. So we don't want to do it to you again.
I appreciate it. It's a date.
Thank you very much. All right. Sorry, I can't call you back up. If we had a specific question, I could call you back up, but we don't. Sorry. Okay, with that, can I get a motion to reclose the public hearing for file number H 2022-0027?
For
Mr. Chairman,
continuance, we don't close the public hearing.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry. Okay, with that, if somebody wants to make a motion,
So I didn't hear the date for that continuance.
January 9th, 2020,
Okay.
January 5th, 2023.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I move that we continue file number H 2022-0027 to the hearing date of January 5th, 2023.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to continue the file number H 2022-0027 for Sagara to the date of January 5th, 2023. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, continuance passes. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it. We'll give everybody a second here to clear out, and then we'll start the next one. All right. This time I'd like to open file number H 2022-0065 for West Valley Emergency Center, and we will begin with staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. The last item on the agenda this evening is the West Valley Emergency Center. As you mentioned, this is a development agreement and a conditional use permit before you this evening. As we typically explain to this commission, the development agreement, because the CUP is concurrent with a development agreement modification, both you guys are recommending body tonight, and that CUP will go up with that DA modification to city council.
Okay.
So the site consists of 16.46 acres of land. It's currently zoned CG in the city. It's located at the southwest corner of North Levi Lane and North Rustic Oak Way. If you recall, this project was in front of you in 2021 as part of the Prescott Ridge development. And so all of that R15 and R8 to the south of this property was also annexed in with this particular piece. At the time of that hearing, it was disclosed that a future hospital would be located on the site. As part of that process as it went through city council made a determination, typically when we look at hospital specific use standards, they typically have access to arterial roadways, and we know how constrained corridor that Chinden Boulevard is. But one of the requests that we made of city council at the time was whether or not this hospital taking access off the collector road would still meet the intent of it. The collector road tying into the arterial, the state highway would still meet that intent, and they could move forward with that. And the commission, or excuse me, the council did conclude that they could make that finding. So therefore, we're here tonight to talk about phase one with you. You can see here on the future land use map that again, this property has two designations on it, mixed use regional and medium density residential. And that's how it ended up zoned CG, because it's predominantly mixed use regional, and a hospital tends to have a regional draw. The other issue, if you recall, as part of that application was the hospital was, or at least the applicant was generous enough to go back and purchase additional property to make sure that we had a cohesive plan as part of their development. So again, that's why we're here tonight. And you can see here, they have provided, so really the purpose of the DA mod for city council is to basically pull this to have them enter into their own DA subject to their own phasing plan, and allow them to seek alternative compliance for the noise abatement along Chinden Boulevard. it's interesting that uses other, typically when we have residential uses along a state highway, we have a 4-foot berm and a sound attenuation wall to mitigate the residential use, but there's also specific uses like hospitals, schools, and churches that also have that same requirement. And so in this particular case, the applicant has submitted an alternative compliance, which has been approved, to present their case that there's not a need for it because they're set back from the highway. And I think from our discussions with the applicant, I think they're amenable to doing some type of berming, just not a 10-foot tall berm or a fence, just maybe a 3 or 4 foot tall berm just to kind of screen the parking lot and soften the amount of asphalt that you see from the roadway. But I won't get into too many of those details. As I mentioned to you, staff's already approved that request, and then ultimately council has approved the DA mod to go along with that alternative compliance request. So you can see here, here is their phasing plan. And so the first portion of their development will be the emergency center. You can see the 2 access points here, and then the applicant's also proposing to build the 30-foot wide landscape buffer adjacent to those residential uses as well with the first phase, with the ultimate goal of having a secondary access that ties into Serenity Lane here in the northwest corner. If you had a chance to look at our staff report, you realize that there may be some obstacles for that to occur. I think the applicant's working through those details. But if they can't or don't have the right to get an emergency access to that roadway, we have conditioned them to provide that emergency access to this cul-de-sac. Also mentioned to the council or to the commission that this phase of the Prescott Ridge subdivision has been approved or will be approved for final plat. And we also place that same condition that if the hospital is not able to obtain the emergency access in the northwest corner, that they work with the hospital in order to facilitate that secondary access through this cul-de-sac here in the southwest corner. So I think we've had that provisions covered. I know the applicant's aware of that and they're good with that as well. I'd also mentioned to the commission that because this is not a lot of square footage with this particular phase, secondary access is not required at this time. So that will happen probably with a later phase, but just wanted to at least go on the record and share that with you. Also mentioned to you that the MOB retail restaurant building phase 2 will not require any further refinement or action from the commission because that is a principally permitted use. So they'll just have to go through staff level approval for that. But because this CUP does not include the 3rd phase, they will have to come back and modify the CUP to construct the 3rd phase. And that's been conditioned in the staff report. Here's the landscape plan again, alternative compliance, that multi-use pathway is occurring. Access again is located off the collector roadway. To my knowledge, the applicant's in agreement with the conditions in the staff report. I would mention to the commission that we did receive written testimony from some of the adjacent neighbors in Val Vista. I think it was the subdivision, if my memory serves, well, no, not what, I don't, Serenity Lane. And they would prefer that the emergency access go with option 2, which is the cul-de-sac in the southwest corner. Again, with that, I'll conclude my presentation and stand for any additional questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. The applicant like to come forward? Good evening, ma'am. Need your name and address, please?
Betsy Hunsaker, 1717 Arlington Avenue, Caldwell, 83605. I'm the administrator at West Valley Medical Center and with HCA Healthcare. So good evening and thank you. We've been here, I feel like I've been here a lot, but it looks like we've got a few new faces from maybe the last time we were here. So thanks for hearing this tonight. We also have several others with us who can speak to any questions you might have about the project, including our architect and our civil engineer, if you have some specific questions. And as Mr. Parsons mentioned, this project was previously approved as part of a master development. And we're back today seeking the required conditional use permit, which we knew at the time would be coming back for that. And then also some development agreement amendments that Mr. Parsons also described. We continue to be really excited about bringing this project to this area of Meridian. You all know better than anyone how fast this area is growing, and there are really no healthcare services in this part of the community. And, I'd like to just give you a little bit about HCA in West Valley, since we do have some new folks here. We are a tax-paying entity. So unlike some other hospital partners in the area and across the country, this property will generate property taxes and income taxes for the city of Meridian, thereby supporting growth and infrastructure well beyond our own use. West Valley has been a best place to work by Modern Healthcare over 7 times in the last 8 years. We've received a Leapfrog A safety score, which is the highest score possible, 18 periods in a row. And we've received the Patient Safety Excellence Award from Health Grades, which puts us in the top 10% of hospitals across the country for patient safety based on publicly reported data. I'm really proud of who we are, and I'm really proud that we're going to be able to bring our people and our culture to this area and provide great patient care for people in this community. And then I'd also mention that HCA has been recognized by Ethisphere as one of the world's most ethical companies for 12 consecutive years. So I'd really like to thank the planning staff for working with us on all the various recommendations and involvement in this phase of the project. We are comfortable with their recommendations. There was one public comment letter in the packet that he referred to, and I was just going to address that as well. We also would prefer to use that south emergency access through the cul-de-sac, and we've talked to Hubble Homes about that. So I think that would be our plan of it, our plan moving forward, which addresses the neighbors' concerns. That road is I believe required by the city. So if we do need to construct that road at this stage, then we would basically barricade it at both ends, or block it, not allow use on it. And then the other comment was really around the berm wall, the noise abatement. And in the report, you'll see we did hire a noise engineer to make sure that we were, that this alternative compliance would meet the requirements. And that noise engineer felt that the distance of, I think it's 400 feet set off the property was an adequate noise abatement, just distance alone. But we do definitely agree with the staff's recommendation for a 3-foot berm. And actually, I think that will provide some, the opportunity to provide some nice landscape and screening and really make that an inviting property for the community. So with that, I'll stand for any questions, which I may need backup on, just, if you get too technical on me.
Commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicant or staff?
Okay, thank you.
None right now. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody signed up to testify?
We have a Sharon Kamal. How about Corey Coulter?
Good evening, sir. Name and address, please.
Corey Coltrane, 6178 North Serenity Lane. I'm the third lot from Chinden that backs up to the hospital there. And I am here representing the HOA for the Peregrine Heights subdivision. No one from the HOA was able to make it, so they asked if I would come. And I just wanted to express our opinion that we are really in favor of that access going out that back cul-de-sac to the south. Serenity Lane is a private lane, and we don't plan on we don't appreciate a private entity trying to take that over, and we'd really appreciate if that was we appreciate the staff's opinion on going out the back as a way better alternative to kind of hijacking our private neighborhood that we've had I've been there for 22 years. So appreciate your time. Look forward to being a good neighbor, and it's going to be a wonderful facility. We know that. And we just would like to keep our lane to ourselves.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, that is all we have signed up online or in-house.
I only see one other person in chambers. I don't see a hand popping up. Would any of our Zoom attendees like to raise a hand? If not, the applicant can come back up. Is there anything further you want to add?
I just would like to clarify. So, if we all agree to that, we would prefer to use that south access. What maybe, Bill, we just need to clarify what the expectations are for that frontage road. Because if we, and what the city's expectation is on the construction of that frontage road, and maybe that's a separate staff conversation, but I don't know what has to be kind of in the development agreement, because right now the development agreement requires us to build that frontage road. So that would be, I think, a question for staff, because we'd be fine not even, am I speaking out to, I mean, we'd be fine not constructing the frontage road if we don't have to.
Okay, quick question on the berm and everything. We do like 4-foot berm, 6-foot fence, because that's generally, there's a lot of that goes around, and that's generally what's worked off of. So kind of makes it in compliance with everything else and might have a similar look and feel for anything that goes in down the road.
Well, the recommendation from staff was a 3-foot berm.
I know. I want another foot, Bill.
Without a fence.
No, with the fence.
So the commercial developments on Chinden do not have a berm and a fence. I mean, so from our perspective as a business, that's a real deterrent, because you can't see the business. And the only reason that's required is for noise abatement. So it's not a screen for the property, it's for noise abatement. So I guess that's why it's not required for, I'm looking at the staff. It's not, my understanding is the only reason the wall or that berm's height is for noise abatement. I mean, that's for us as the occupant of that property to be set back 400 feet and then have a 6-foot wall and a 4-foot berm. It needs to be a viable business.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's, I'm also looking at the restaurant pad that's going to go there, and just trying to make sure that we get a similar look and feel as we go into this thing. So, I mean, whatever's going to go along there as we stretch down further down Chinden Boulevard to the east is, we want to make sure whatever gets put here is going to set a precedence for whatever goes in. So if something taller is going to be required further down the road, then I would think we would want to start here.
I guess I would point out that Costco has 0 berm and 0 landscaping on the Costco lot, which is, I know it's not a hospital use, but it is a commercial use. And the only reason that is required in our property is for the noise abatement purpose.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, just those 2 points. So first of all, the director's already approved the all-term compliance. So it's a 4-foot berm is what we're getting. Certainly, if you want council to take that under consideration, they can do that as part of their purview. But right now, the directors approved it, and they've approved it that they do at least a minimum 4-foot tall berm along that. As to the second topic that the applicants brought up is if the DA requires the road. So there's a couple of things we have to look at. One is their MDA request does not include that to be modified. 2, the property was mixed use regional. At the time that we acted on this application, the way our code reads is when you front a state highway, code requires you to build a backage road because we try to limit accesses on Chinden Boulevard. Typically, the code says you do that by building a road 660 feet from the intersection. So you have adequate lot depth to do something in that area. This particular case, given the existing county subdivision, that limited that they're walled off and couldn't do that. The concession was made that they would build that road, that cross-access road across the frontage there, and consistent with this plan. So again, need to look at the DA. I think it's more of a conversation with staff, but certainly if that's something they need to address, they should take that up with council when they do that with the DA modification.
Okay. Thank you much for that. Appreciate it. Okay, nobody else wants to testify. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing for file number H 2022-0065?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing for file number H 2022-0065. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. I'm not sure what that sound was, but I will
Aye.
take that as an aye, and the public hearing is closed for file number H 2022-0065. Who would like to comment first, or we can hear a motion, or any of the above?
Mr. Chairman, just a comment that I think it's a much needed service in that area. And it seems like there's universal agreement on the emergency access on the south via the cul-de-sac. So that would be my recommendation to the city council to the extent they need it. So I'm in favor of it.
Okay. My other commissioners want to comment?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Wheeler.
Go right ahead, Commissioner Wheeler.
I really don't see much of the argument for anything else, but just for me, it's just it seems that that's the best use for it. They're seeming to comply with city zoning requirements, access issues. I like the way that the parking spacing is there to where it's not any immediate access to any of the facilities, just straight off the highway. So for me, this is something I could support.
Yeah, and I'm kind of on the same page. I mean, what's in our purview to speak to tonight is the CUP, really, which has really nothing to do with the which road they take at this point in time. So it sounds like everybody's in agreement as to what they would like to do with this. It's just a matter of working with staff and making sure that that's something that is provided for before you go to city council. So the fact that the representative from the HOA is here to now say that this is a beautiful thing after spending a lot of time with you previously is a great thing. So happy to hear that. I mean, I'm of the opinion that, this has been hashed out, and what's here is going to serve the community well and is a good thing for the community as well. So I would be more than happy to take a motion on this.
Mr. Chairman,
Go right ahead.
after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to the city council of file number H 2022-0065 is presented in the staff report for the hearing date of December 1st, 2022.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve file number H 2022-0065 for West Valley Emergency Center with no modifications. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, at this, actually, I need to bring up that in our next meeting, if the commissioners could please be here at 5 p.m. For some training. We would like everybody, well, we need to have everybody come on site for that. If that's not going to work for you, please let Joy know, and we'll see how many people we're going to have here, and we'll act accordingly. With that, I will take one more motion.
Mr. Chairman, motion to adjourn.
Second.
And moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Thanks.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.